Thank you, Truman. I want to start where Truman left off and really talk about the key sales objective that we have, both in sales and marketing, which is to drive market penetration and to build a loyal consumer base. And we look at those two measures in a couple of ways. In terms of driving market penetration, for us it's about improving our brand awareness across our 53 markets, as well as creating trial, largely through these LTO product launches that we have. And secondly, in terms of driving the consumer base, is building a strong and loyal brand perception or positive brand perception around ageLOC in particular, but our entire line, and converting that trial that comes through these LTO product launches into repeat. So to do that, I'm going to go through some of the metrics that we use to measure the health and of our growth rate and the sustainability of our growth rate. I'll talk in more depth about our 2-year business cycles, which we've talked about before, but I'm going to share some insights about the progress we're making in creating an even more efficient way to do this. I'll introduce what we think is going to be an important innovation for the future to allow us to continue making these LTO or these 2-year products or business cycles even more effective, called the Nu Skin EXPO. And then I'll finish up, as Truman said, with a case study on mainland China. So we continue to look at two important roles in our business. One is those who consume our products, which makes up the vast majority of our active base, those who purchase our products on a regular basis. 85% of our base, our active base, buy and use products simply. The other 15% are made up of our sales leaders. They are also buyers and users of our products, and they also resell our products. They find new consumers across the world, and they train and develop their sales organizations. They, in essence, are building a business. And these roles have remained consistent over the past year since we started talking about this. If you look at more broadly how we measure our growth, you can see we talk about our global active base, which includes sales leaders and also these consumers, and it's a measure of those who purchase at least once the products every 3 months. As you can see, across all of our regions, we're seeing healthy growth in our active base, which is now up to over 1.27 million actives. A subset of that group is our sales leaders, and we can't emphasize enough, and many of them are probably listening into this presentation today, how important that partnership is with our leaders across the world. That partnership, that alignment, when that happens, great things happen, and that's what we're, as Truman pointed out, getting better at. We now number over 100,000 sales leaders across the world, which is roughly double where it was last year, and we're seeing growth in most of our regions in that base. Our operating philosophy, and this is important as we go across, because we're in 53 markets and the way we're executing the business, we present ourselves as one company. If you go to a Nu Skin event in Europe or Japan or Korea, you'll hear the company presented as in terms of our vision and our mission in much the same way. We have one strategy, which are these 2-year business cycles. We execute that globally in a very synchronized fashion across the 2 years. And our values and cultures are also consistent across the world. What differs is the way we operate in these different these countries to conform to local regulations. A good example of that is in Korea, where there's a commission cap of 35%, and in Korea we adjust our compensation model to adhere to that government regulation. In China, there are various regulations, including the need to have very specific licenses for the different places where we execute our direct selling business. We also, across the world, have different regulatory requirements, which means that our product ingredients change slightly to meet those different regulations. So we execute globally the same strategy, but we operate locally to conform to those different requirements. About 5 years ago, we created more focus and more alignment around the anti-aging category, and this is important for us because we're looking for a way to take our 53 markets and move them together. And as we looked at making our focus anti-aging, it worked for the reasons that Truman stated, which is that anti-aging concerns or aging concerns are ubiquitous across just about most of the developed countries and developing countries in the world. It's also a category that has plenty of room for growth. It's projected to be $1 trillion by the year 2025. And it also lends itself very well to our way of doing business, being able to describe personal experience with a product and being able to describe some of the unique aspects of our business work very well. So we're pleased with the category we compete in, as well as the performance we're achieving in that category. Truman's talked a little bit about the ageLOC brand and how unique it is from a number of different aspects. I just want to touch briefly on something about ageLOC that gives us the ability to execute our strategy. When we launched ageLOC in 2009, one of the important aspects of the brand was that, one, it created a platform that could extend across different categories, and secondly, it also was a description of our science. So the ageLOC science and the ageLOC brand come together. And why that's important for our sales force is when we're trying to align them and get them to move together in a consistent way, and as we introduce different categories, they don't have to relearn every 2 years what it is they're selling. They understand what the ageLOC brand is, what the ageLOC brand represents, how it's differentiated in the marketplace, and they understand the ageLOC science, which Joe Cheng will describe in a few minutes. So that ability to seamlessly move from one new product introduction to the next is one of the things that enables us to execute this 2-year cycle effectively. So if you think about it, over the last few years, in 2009, we introduced the skincare line for ageLOC, which was called Transformation. At the same time, we restaged our galvanic spa to be an ageLOC galvanic spa. So our entry into skincare and skincare in the home use device market. And you saw the results for that. We were successful in doing that. In 2011, 2 years later, in our second 2-year cycle, we introduced our first ageLOC nutrition product with R Squared. Again, the same story with ageLOC, extended into a different part of the anti-aging category, and we introduced an extension of the galvanic spa, the body galvanic spa. Again, same story. In 2013, we've now completed the first half of the LTO in weight management, and the ageLOC story remains the same. What this means as we move into the future and you see these exciting categories is that our sales force understand the story. They understand how to sell. They understand how to train. And our future is going to be, I think, from a product standpoint, even more exciting as we start to look at personalized skincare, and Joy will touch on this in a few minutes, the next generation of nutrition products, the next generation of home use devices. We have several exciting local product initiatives that take advantage of some of the unique trends in our different markets, and we're also looking at personalized nutrition. So here's how these 2-year business cycles work. They're basically 5 steps, and we go through them 2 times in 2 years, once a year. We start with aligning our leaders, and that happened for this year over a year ago when we met with a core group of our leaders in Hawaii and started talking about what our goals were for this upcoming LTO that we just executed, and talked about the strategy and the new product that we're going to be launching, TR90. From there, these global leaders spread out throughout the world and continue to work with their local management teams to train the rest of the sales force. So basically, sequentially started training a broader and broader group of our sales leaders so that when we launched executed the global LTO in Q3 and Q4, eventually all of our sales leaders around the world had already prepared their organizations for the LTO. And because the LTO is timed, is a very specific date by region, you can see, when you see the spike in our sales, the entire global sales force moving together at the same time. And that's what creates the excitement. It's what creates the anticipation. And it's what creates the energy going out of the LTO to continue to expand the business. The last step is rewarding the results. And this is done in a number of ways, but I think the video you saw this morning, you saw a lot of happy people having fun, celebrating what had just happened in their home markets, coming together, talking about Nu Skin, talking about the culture, and most importantly, talking about the future and what they plan to do to grow their business. Year 2 is exactly the same as year 1 in the business cycle, with the exception of the LTOs being executed on a regional basis. And that last step is that we have an ongoing product availability as the product is launched for permanent sale and goes into our base business. So when you put all that together, we talk about it as being repeatable and sustainable, but we also talk about it as our Nu Skin business rhythm. It makes it really simple for our leaders to know what they're going to be doing next year, how they're going to be doing it, and they're getting better and better at planning and executing their business, synchronized with our getting better and better at executing it from our side. And you can see these sequential cycles that take place as we launch into each new category. So Truman talked about what the results have been, going from 17 million in the first LTO to 550 million in our most recent LTO. And there are 3 things that are creating this growth. The first thing is the participation rate. You can see from 2012 to 2013, instead of having 20%, we had a 20% increase, so 22%, and that's probably ended up being a little bit higher. We're still in the midst of the LTO month. The 20% increase in the participation rate across the world. More importantly, though, is that participation rate is being spread across a larger base of actives. Our base active base, and now 1.27 billion, has increased by 40%. So that participation across a larger base. And the third thing that affects the size of the LTO is the order size for each active. Now, in the case of 2012 to 2013, the average purchase size, even though our product, this is a more expensive product offering, the average purchase size is actually 25% lower than it was last year. So you can see that the biggest impact for this current LTO is the larger active base and a higher participation rate. So if you think about the strategic insights that we see as we look at the business, we are confident that these 2-year business cycles are working. They provide a very simple roadmap that help our sales leaders execute the business very effectively. We also are very, the launch cycles and regular launch cycles of innovative products create confidence in our innovation engine and in the future, and they drive those 2 key measures that we talked about earlier, trial and repeat purchases. So with that in mind, we've been working over the last several years to find ways to take these insights and to use them between LTO launches, to take essentially those 2 big spikes and supplement those cycles with a set of sub-cycles. So I want to talk to you very briefly about a new initiative that we've been testing and refining over the last several years called the Nu Skin EXPO. So what you see here in this picture are pictures of some of our physical facilities around the world. There's the Japan Ginza store, which was a pop-up store that was part of a test there. In the middle, you see an experience center in mainland China, and on the right, you see a store in London, which was also part of a test to identify ways to leverage these physical facilities to execute and supplement these 2-year business cycles. Here's what a Nu Skin EXPO is at a very high level. And then after we talk about this, I'll show you exactly what we've been doing in Greater China with these and why we're excited about this as a future expansion opportunity in the future. These are quarterly events. So instead of a annual business cycle, these events take place on a quarterly cycle. They're staged in a very similar way in terms of having a very specific date and a very specific time in the quarter so that our leaders can get behind them. And it creates some very simple dynamics that are highly effective in our business. One, it gives people who come and visit the physical facility where this expo is taking place a very personal experience with the products from the consumer side, or for prospective sales leaders, a very personal experience with the company that gives them confidence. It leverages the product promotions. We have not big price promotions or anything like that. It typically comes with a gift with purchase or some kind of special incentive that if they purchase during this expo, there's something special that takes place. And the last one I mentioned earlier is it strengthens our 2-year cycles. So as I mentioned, we've been testing this for the last several years. It actually started in Southeast Asia, has been refined and perfected in Greater China, and we're now at the point that we feel confident that we understand how to make this work globally, and we'll be expanding that over the next several years.